Welcome everybody to Journey into the Martial Arts. And I'm so excited to have two of the best women in the world in the martial arts on screen right now. That is Restita De Jesus and Kathy Long. Awesome. You guys, I've been watching and been involved, as you know, with your Dynamic Dojo Talk TV. Congratulations on all of that. It's been fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for watching and being a fan of it. It's always an honor to have you come in and comment and join us for discussions on our show.
It is. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you for your nice comments on particularly that last podcast. We had some pretty important issues and we, got some things done there, which is really interesting. So it's really good though to talk, face to face. Well, in COVID times, distancing, of course. But I can't wait to meet you guys again face to face, and we haven't met before, which is awesome. And then in the future, we've got some whole bunch of exciting stuff happening. But I need to know, and so the audience, where did it all start? Who wants to go first? A basic life, where you were born, grew up, how you got into the martial arts from there. Let's go.
Oh, I'd like how she got me to go first. Well, I am Seattle, Washington, born and raised. I was actually thought up in the Philippines, but my parents moved here, and I was born here in Seattle, Washington, and I've lived all throughout Washington, but Seattle has been my home base for a very long time. And so I've been born and raised here, started my martial arts journey here at around the age of between 8 and 9. And I've gone through studying Butokukan karate, and I did a little stint of Aikido for about 3 years. Kaju Kenbo, which I'm teaching now. I teach Kaju Kenbo, I teach Tai Chi, and I also teach extracurricular. I was going to say off curricular, but extracurricular stuff like bullwhip cracking and blowgun shooting and slingshot shooting,
knife throwing
and stuff like that. Archery and stuff like that. So yeah, it's ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to do all that here, right in Seattle. So there you go.
That is awesome. It's like, of course, I've researched you guys and been a fan for a long time, and I've known your grandfather originally was a warrior,
that's right. Santiago Toledo, on my dad's side, was the founder of a eskrima style called the Toledo style of eskrima, and then later on the Toledo Colado style of eskrima. And unfortunately, from what I'm gathering, the last living masters of my great grandfather's art have passed away. So technically, unless there's someone out there that I don't know about, technically the style is dead. And that's why I need to kind of talk to Guru Dan one of these days, the next time we go go down to California. I've been trying to find a way to find anybody that knows anything about my great granddad's style, because I am interested in kind of reviving it. But
it's cool. We can spread the word on the podcast here.
Yeah,
those martial arts looking out. So what was it called, the style, and how did that develop from him?
Well, in the Philippines back in the late 19th century and early 20th century, if there were styles, they were primarily named after the person, the well-known fighter that became well-known. Because back then they didn't have UFC or any of that kind of stuff. So a lot of times Filipino warriors or fighters, people in Arnis or Eskrima or Kali, it was their reputation that always preceded them, in the particular area that they were living in. In my great granddad's case, he was raised in the Pangasinan province of the Philippines and became known as a well-known fighter in that particular province. And then And then as his style grew wider, he went into partnership with another master named Colado, which, and first name completely escapes me because I don't know much about the style, even though my dad told me stories of what other people, how should we say, my dad told me stories of the legends that other people have about my great grandfather, right?
Awesome.
With, you know, people in the Philippines at that time being very superstitious, right? But, you know, from that point in time, he didn't have a style. He learned from his master and he modified it to fit him. And when he got challenged by other escrimadores, he would win, and, you know, and pretty soon his reputation would precede him, and then people would seek him out for instruction. And, you know, rather than people saying, what style do you take? People would ask you, if they knew that you were studying with someone, who do you study with? Not what style do you do?
Right.
Who do you study with, right?
And in the old days when the instructor was more important than the style.
Exactly. Right. And it was like that. What style?
It was almost like, so I do martial art. Oh, what style? You know,
what's up? Right? And it was like that all over Asia, Korea, Japan, China, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, you know.
You know, believe it or not, in the Kung Fu Sansu community, it was like that too. It's not what style, because it was Kung Fu Sansu, but who did you study with?
Yeah.
Right. Who did you learn under? Yeah.
Yeah.
Reputation sees them and down the line.
Yeah. And, you know, and nowadays, you know, you've got a lot of the very popular styles that are well known now, right? So you've got like Pikiti, you've got like Jose Pares, which is what I do. But you know, luckily the modern styles have had modern technology and media to further the styles. I mean, thank goodness, right? You know, styles that, you know, that are or had been kind of like in the background and in the shadows and weren't really known and were pretty much just local, are now having their own channels on YouTube and Instagram. And
it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah,
it's amazing how that came about. However, you know, late 18th century or 18th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, when my great granddad was around, they didn't have that. So it was just a lot of, you know.
Yeah, I remember when I first got into it, I was 11 when I did judo in the 70s, but 73, 74. But then when I left school and traveling around looking at different places, there was obviously no YouTube and things like that. So I had to sneak around and have a little look to make sure, you know, watch a lesson or get a free lesson, try it out. And, you know, they come in and, you know, sign up or whatever. I just want to check it out. But, you know, it was interesting. It's now you can just go on YouTube and check somebody out and go, oh, yeah, they look all right, you know, whatever. But which is, you know, so I suppose the martial arts has lost that secrecy to it, or that kung fu, you know, David Carradine kind of exciting secrecy. And then Bruce Lee, of course, with all the full action and the contrast between what he did with his dynamic performances, with David Carradine being the, you know, very peaceful. So I know you probably got into it like I did through the Kung Fu TV series and Bruce Lee movies, right?
Exactly. For me, yeah, that's how I got into it. How I got attracted to martial arts.
Yeah, that Kung Fu series is pretty cool. I loved it. So
it was. I think everybody wanted to be Kwai Chang Caine, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Or at least have
everybody watched it.
Yeah,
certainly.
or at least have like people that taught them that had that, you know, upper wisdom. You know what I mean? And that's what really drew me to it, was the wisdom aspect of it, as opposed to just the blood and guts, you know, fighting type.
Yeah, I know. It's, you know, the expression about it's not about fighting, it's about living and living to potential. That's what I love about the martial art, traditional martial arts, is because it's the world's best personal development system, and that's what I definitely promote in my motivational seminars and martial motivation and everything. And just I love all that personal development. It's nice to be able to know how to defend yourself, of course, and fight and whatever you call it. But yeah, fighting, the word fighting, you know, you've got to be careful using that at times, you know, but self-defense, you know, and
exactly.
And the philosophy side of it. And but you guys, this is fantastic, because your styles at Tai Chi. So you got obviously Kathy with the kickboxing and the and the Kung Fu and the Aikido black belt. So Cat, for short, because we've got Cat and Rusty here, everybody. Now, Australians have nicknames. And
Yes.
love shortening names like Bazza and Lazza and Jono and all this. Steve-O. All that.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've got Kat now, Kathy Long, ladies and gentlemen, 5 times world kickboxing champion and movie star. Let's go, Kat. Your history, thank you.
Gosh, I started training in martial arts when I was 14. I had a friend who came, who was studying Aikido on March Air Force Base. And March Air Force Base was, the West Gate was right next to the trailer park that I lived in. Well, anyway, she brought me to class one day, and I fell in love with not so much Aikido or martial arts, but I fell in love with the family structure that was provided there, the nurturing and caring and promoting, and I didn't have any of that at home. So when I met this giant guy, this giant black guy named Ron Granville, he was a postman by day and an Aikido instructor by night. And he was just the gentlest, like huge, gentle giant. And at 14, I was pretty small, and he was huge, but he was just incredibly strong and gentle at the same time. And it was something I was really drawn to, only because I had somebody who actually would listen to me and talk to me, for one. Because in my household, it was more of a dictatorship where kids were seen but not heard, and you stayed out of the way. My parents never once knew what my grades were. They never looked at my report card.
Wow.
They didn't know anything about me in school, except for occasionally I'd bring home a running medal, for sprinting or running or something, and I'd bring home a little trophy or a medal or something that they gave away at school, and it was, oh, okay, great. But like I said, kids were seen but not heard at our house. Wow. So when I was around him, the Ron Granville, and doing Aikido with him, I got there because I lived next to the West Gate. I would sneak on to the March Air Force Base. I would crawl into this little ravine and go under a fence and crawl through the gutter for a little while, poke my head up and see if the guy at the gate was looking. And when he wasn't looking, I'd just stand up and I'd start walking like I owned the joint. And it was my place, right? Because there was families who lived on the base.
So what state was this in?
This was in California.
In California, in Cali, right? Right.
Yeah, California.
Yeah.
So March Air Force Base at that time was a very heavily populated and very active military base. So
was it in San Diego, or where was that at?
No, this was in Moreno Valley, California.
Reno Valley, got it. Right.
Moreno Valley, yeah. And I was the first one there. I'd be waiting for him, and then when he showed up, we'd do class, and I'd stay after and clean up, and I'd be the last one to leave because I just didn't want to be at home. It was so much better to be there, to be among other martial arts people who really actually listened to you and cared and had something to say and were encouraging and helpful. And so that's how I started in martial arts. And then from then on, I went on to doing Kung Fu Sansu with and training from another guy who was just the opposite of my Aikido instructor. He was very boastful, very talented, but very boastful, and really didn't portray good values in the school. So I carried that wherever I went. I decided, well, if the instructor's not going to do it, I will, and I will make sure that I encourage people and help people and speak good about people as opposed to trash talking and things like that. He would trash talk other schools.
Wow.
Even though he was really talented.
Your son for Mr. Miyagi across the Cobra Kai, right? Started off with the master was very calm and peaceful like Mr. Miyagi. Then you went to the more aggressive instructor like Cobra Kai,
Right.
John Kreese.
Right, but I maintained the calm, and I wanted to continue what I had learned until I got my black belt in Aikido, and then I switched over to Kung Fu Sansu. But it was really there were more people that gravitated to me, and I didn't know what I was teaching at the time. But I just loved it so much. I love training in martial arts, period. And when I started training in Kung Fu Sansu, at first I thought it was kind of violent. I was like, well, this is really violent, because we stick our fingers in their eye and hit them in the groin and stomp on their knee and hit them in the windpipe and crush their testicles, whatever.
Sounds like
They're
Kachi
going
Kim.
to rape you.
Right. And it's the way they trained, you know, and that would hit the target as opposed to missing the target, as opposed to pulling our shots. We would actually hit the target. And you learn to react accordingly, which does lots of things. It helps you realize, you know, if I inflict this kind of pain on their eyes, they're not going to stand there and go, oh,
You didn't
and
get
move their
me.
head back.
Yeah.
No, they're going to be doing this. And they can't see, which allows other targets that open up, and
Exactly.
you go on from there. Anyway, long story short, during my Kung Fu Sansu training, the instructor introduced other styles. He brought in somebody from the Anasano Academy, and we were learning JKD, we were learning Wing Chun, we were learning Kali, and you know, it was something that I really loved. And at that point, I was really happy with the fact that I could be training in martial arts, and I tried to put him aside in his attitude and his boastfulness and he was a good instructor in some ways, and in other ways horrible. So you had to take what you felt was useful, right?
Yep.
And go on from there. And during that time, I would go to tournaments and I would compete in forms. And there was this one girl who was 16 at the time, 15 or 16, and she was, you know, stocky and strong and built like a short refrigerator. And she kept challenging me to do point fighting against her. And I said, look, I don't do that kind of fighting. I mean, if I'm going to hit you, I'm going to hit you in the eyes. I'm going to hit you in the windpipe. I'm going to stomp on your knee. I don't do point fighting. And I don't, at that time, I just felt that it wasn't useful. And how am I going to compete against you when I'm supposed to pull my shot, when I'm not used to doing that?
Right.
I was already, it's like, I'm not going to pull my shot. And, you know, abiding by the rules where you can only hit from here to, you know, in the waist, focus contact only to the face. These were the rules at the time and the place that I was in. Long story short, I said, you want to fight? Let's go out back and fight.
Back in the park. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's just fight.
She's all like, gauntlet.
She didn't take me up on it. However, her martial arts instructor, because she studied martial arts as well as kickboxing and had been doing kickboxing for a couple of years. So her martial arts instructor called mine and asked if I'd be willing to do an exhibition. Was just, you know, to show the skill level of each fighter, right? If I would do an exhibition, she weighed 190 pounds and I weighed 120, right? So
That ain't fair.
it had to be an exhibition because she had 2 years experience. I had zero experience, like zero. So I said, okay, when is this tournament? And she goes, well, it's in 10 days. And I said, so I have 10 days to learn how to do kickboxing. She goes, yep. I said, okay, I'll do it. Because I asked, what are the rules? Well, you put on gloves, you have to kick above the waist, but you can kick them with full force, you can punch with full force. And I went, all right, I'll do it. If I'm allowed to hit you as hard as I can, it's on. Let's do it. So for 10 days, I learned how to box. 10 days. And then we had our bout. And I'll never forget this. This was something that I think, you know, I'll give my instructor kudos for. We had the fight and the bell rang for the first round, and I ran out there and I was just throwing punches and kicks as hard and as fast as I could. I was just just hitting her, and she was hitting me.
So you do that on YouTube plenty of times.
Right. And at one point I had her in a headlock. I don't know how this happened. I got her in a headlock and I'm uppercutting her face as hard as I
I don't think that's allowed.
No, it wasn't allowed.
That's not allowed.
Peter Cunningham was the referee, and Peter goes, no, you can't do that. You can't. I said, I'm so sorry. And I didn't know who Peter was, right? Well, the bell rang for the second round, I mean, in between, And she sat down in her corner and I got up and I said, "What are you sitting down for? Are you tired? Come on, get up. Let's just keep fighting." And I was so scared.
Those days.
Yeah. And I told her Muhammad Ali and that I was so scared. I just went out there and was acting crazy and saying, "Come on, you want to fight? Come on, don't sit down. Just get up. Let's go right now." And I didn't want her to think that I was scared. So I did
crazy.
Or I was acting crazy.
Acting crazy.
Yeah. So after the fight, the referee gets in, not the referee, the announcer gets in the ring. He goes, "Give it up, ladies and gentlemen. We're tallying up the scores right now." And when we both heard that, my trainer went up to the announcer and put his arm around his shoulder like this. He goes, "Hey, buddy. So you said this was an exhibition. Your girl weighs 190. My girl weighs 120. So I'll tell you what, if you announce a winner, and if you announce her as the winner, I'm going to break your arm right here." The announcer says, "What a wonderful exhibition, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It was really wonderful to watch these two girls give it up for this whole crowd." And of course, the whole crowd was from her school and
right.
Right.
So there was no winner announced because it was an exhibition.
Right.
They're going to.
But why were there scores then?
There were not supposed to be scores.
Right.
But because it was their school running the whole thing, they just decided they were going to run scores and of course have their girl win. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know honestly, but I can assume.
No, was she a kickboxer or was she from a karate school that did kumite and then you guys decided to use kickboxing?
No, she was from a karate school that also did kickboxing.
Got it. Okay. Right. Got it.
So in that respect, that's how I started in kickboxing.
What year was that, Kat?
What year was that? 1987.
87. So it was the beginning of your career. Yep.
Yeah. And in 1989, I turned pro. And my first pro fight was against a girl who was 18-2. Her name was Pixie Elmore. And Pixie Elmore, the Tiger was her name, or the Quiet Tiger. That was her ring name. And she purposely didn't shower for a couple of days and ate a banana on purpose.
What a great idea.
I know, what a great idea, right? She admitted this afterwards. The whole boxing, she would get in there and grab onto me and hit me in the face a couple times before the ref could see anything. Right? So smart, and I was so mad at her. Right? I was so mad.
Yeah.
She hit me, and let me back up. Okay, I think it was the first or second round, probably the second round. Anyway, there was water on the mat, and the bell rang for us to fight. And I'm looking down, wiping water off my foot like an idiot. And she ran across the ring and boom! Knocks me down. I was pissed. I was like, what? And I get up and I'm furious and I'm about to run at her and the referee's counting me out. I'm like, "I'm not hurt, damn it." He goes, "Yeah, she knocked you down though." I'm like, "I'm not hurt, damn it." So he's still giving me the 8 count. I was so mad. So I kept running in face first. She kept knocking me down. I kept running in and she'd knock me down. I don't know how many 8 counts I got. I mean, obviously it wasn't that many, but it was enough for when I got in my corner when the bell rang, my coach slapped me across the face as hard as he could. And I go, "Whoa, what's going on?" He goes, "Stop running in." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I learned that day, never fight angry. Never.
Yeah, good. That's a good point. In whether it's sport or on the street as well, you got to be careful with it.
No. Oh, she didn't win that.
No,
one.
we fought to a draw on that fight.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. She threw an axe kick, and I saw that kick, and I went, "What is she going to hit with that?" And I leaned back, and that was my thought at the time. So I leaned back, and the foot came down, and I hit her with the right cross, and she fell into the ropes, and I was going for broke. I was going as hard as I could, and she got into the ropes, and I just jumped on her, and then she tangled me up because she's so good at grabbing on in dirty boxing. She was really good at it. So I learned a lot that day, an awful lot.
With your Aikido training, do you think that really helped your movement and getting out of way of axe kicks and dodging and weaving and redirecting force?
I was also a black belt in Kung Fu San Soo. So in that respect, being a black belt in both of those styles, huge difference because I was used to striking in combinations anyway, and doing kickboxing in that respect. In Kung Fu San Soo, we constantly work with limitations. Okay, today your left arm's broken, you can't use your left arm, go. Okay, today you can only do this, you know, you have to wear tight jeans and a jacket, go. Okay, today you're wearing, you know, outside shoes and they're really slippery or whatever. You know, we would always find a limitation to work with. And so because I was used to that, when they told me I could put on gloves, but I still got to hit them as hard as I could, I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Right.
Me. Yeah. It took some time. It took some time I got beat up a lot. All my sparring partners were men and they were all already established. They were already US champions, state champions, world champions. So they beat the crap out of me constantly until I figured it out. Took a while.
Yes, well, that improved you enough to be able to then, when you took on the girls, it wasn't as tough as some of these guys, but you did. Right. I know that of some of your fights, you've had some tough, really tough women as well that could hit you pretty hard as well. So, what was your toughest fight, you think, out of all of those? You had quite a lot.
There was a couple of really tough fights, but the one that stands out the most to me and means the most to me is the fight I had in France with the WKA title holder at the time. And she, her name was Danny Roca, and she had been a world champion for a good few years. And, you know, I'd won a couple of world titles. So when I came to fight her, I was the challenger. And I'll never forget the day she stepped on the scale and she weighed 140 pounds when we agreed to come in at 125. 124 is what I weighed. She was supposed to weigh 125 and she weighed 140. And she stepped off that scale. I said, wait a minute, get back on that scale. And the promoter goes, it's no problem. And I'm like, no, it's a problem. You are the champion. She is the champion. So do you want to go home? And I thought, really? This is the second time this has happened to me. Second time. You know, when I went to London, that happened as well. So I just thought, no, I'm not going home. I'm here. I'm here. I've been here for 10 days training, basically on my own, and I'm here to fight. So I just thought, all right, I don't care if she weighs 140 pounds and I'll weigh 124. It didn't matter to me at that point. But every time I hit her, she'd look at me like, yeah, whatever. That's no big deal. And I'd hit her as hard as I could, literally as hard as I could. And she just like, okay, whatever. She just showed no pain whatsoever at all. And it screwed with my mind for a few rounds. And I thought, I got to find a chink in her armor somewhere. I have to find it. So I was hitting her. I was throwing the whole book at her. I was hitting her with everything I could, everything. And I kicked her in the shins. I went for a low round kick. And instead of hitting above the knee, I went below the knee and I went straight into her shins. And I saw her wince in pain.
Okay.
And I went, that's it. I found it. I found it. So I'd kick her in the shin, hit her with a hook, kick her in the shin, hit her with a hook.
Down, then boom. Yep.
Yeah, I just go low and then high, low and then high. And I'm thinking, I got her. I'm slowing her down. I'm finally, because she hit me with the right hand and knocked me on my butt. And the whole world is spinning and I'm out on my feet. I'm literally out. And my eyes are open, but I wasn't there. And I get up, and as the ref's walking up to me, I realize, crap, she knocked me down. I better do something now. And I said to the ref, you got to get that water cleaned up off the mat. I'm slipping all over the place. This is a world title fight with a main event. There should be no water on that mat. There was no water on the mat.
Right. Distracted.
No water on that. It's like, and he goes, okay. It's just a slip. He wipes off my gloves. He cleans up the water that I'm pointing at that's not there. and then he can do, I'm serious. And then he goes, okay, you fight. And by that time I had recovered, but I was dancing around and moving and trying to make sure she missed me because I still wasn't completely back yet. And it took that whole minute rest, to sit down and recover. And thank God I got that minute rest because whew, She hit like a freaking mule.
That is awesome. So those who are watching, you can obviously go to Kathy Long, KathyLong, for those watching, and get on that YouTube and check out your fights and
Yes.
movies. I'm going to come back to you in a minute after I told you, Restita, about your movies, Kathy. So, Restita, I'll get back to you now. We're going to talk about your arts. Let's look a bit of yin and yang here. Tai Chi, the gentle art. Yin and yang. We get to call you Mr. Mrs. Yin and Yang here. The softer side of the traditional martial arts. We've heard about the hard side. Let's go to the softer and tell us about Tai Chi and the benefits there as well.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny, like, when I was younger and coming up in external martial arts like karate and, kajukenbo and the Filipino martial arts where you're actually hitting people, right? When I was younger, I thought that Tai Chi was just for old people, right? And I was young and I was, young and dumb and didn't know that, Tai Chi, is an activity for everyone. And, we did a little bit of Tai Chi in my teacher's karate classes when I was young, taking classes with him because he did Tai Chi. But in the background, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, let's get through this Tai Chi. Let's put on the gear and let's do kumite. Let's spar. But, I knew through media such as the magazines that were popular here in the United States at the time, Inside Kung Fu, Inside Karate, Black Belt magazine, I had learned that there was so much more to Tai Chi than just being slow. And as I studied it, just through reading and academic research, I realized, wow, I thought about Tai Chi in all the wrong ways as a kid.
I was doing Tai Chi while I was doing Kung Fu, and I used Tai Chi as my warm-ups for kickboxing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the Qigong breathing and everything.
Yeah, and breathing, yeah.
Boy, was it helpful.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And, I ended up taking Tai Chi and Wushu from my instructor, Yi Jiao Hong. I started with her in 1996, 1997. I think it was like closer to 1997. And I'd always wanted to do Wushu, but she took me aside and said, do you want to teach Tai Chi someday? Do you want to teach Wushu someday? And I said, yes, I would. And she said, then you must trust me. And I went, uh-oh, what am I getting myself into? Right? So what happened was, what was supposed to be 1 year of every day 6-hour training, it turned into like almost 2.5 years. And it was literally 6 a.m. until 12 noon training. We started out with like 8 people in this teacher instructorship program. And then there was only 2 of us left at the end of it. And Master Hong's goal was to give us the equivalent of 10 years of Tai Chi training in 1 year, but it turned out being 2 years because she didn't what's the word, project the amount of time well enough in her training projection. So we just kept going every day for like 6 hours until we had learned her curriculum of Yang style Tai Chi, Chen style Tai Chi, and modern fast Wushu. So 2 of us graduated in 1999 from that. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I thought getting my black belt in Kajukenbo was hard. Just getting this, this certificate, seemed a bit harder. And because it was like every day was a martial arts test, for 6 hours, right?
Oh yeah.
And there were times where I literally thought about quitting. And then I would think to myself, okay, you're doing Wushu. Okay, that's tough. But then you can't tell anyone that you're quitting because of a Tai Chi class. Come on, right? Right. So, but it was
Not
really,
quitting.
I know. Can you imagine? Oh, she quit the class because it was Tai Chi. You know, and you
No,
know,
that's not good.
no, I mean, it wasn't so much that I was shallow like that, but I was telling myself, you can't quit. Oh my gosh, it's Tai Chi, you know? So that was a little bit of my younger days coming back. But what I learned from that 2.5 years was that Tai Chi is much more than just moving slow, and that it was a martial art. It is
Yep.
a martial art, with the only difference being the speed at which we practice the form.
Right.
Unfortunately, these days, still too many people have that stereotype that Tai Chi Chuan is only for old people. And, you know, people
Right.
come up to me,
Or it's for
and say,
people who are no longer able to do
Yeah.
regular martial
yeah,
arts.
I have
you
people
know?
come up to me, oh, I'll do Tai Chi when I can't do insert martial art here.
Well, that's right. Like my friends, the Tai Chi twins, Joshua and Jeremy Rorty, up in Oregon with them, and I interviewed them on Journey to Martial Arts, and I was talking about their instructor calling the slow stuff in the park tofu
Mhm.
Tai Chi, and the real body movements of
Real-
Tai Chi
and the real
Chuan
stuff,
martial aspect, you know,
yeah,
the striking, the martial aspect of all of that. So, and there is that's right. So there's a big difference between what you see in China in the park with older people doing it.
yeah,
And
and you know,
Chuan.
exactly. Either way, whether you're doing Tai Chi Chuan for health or you're doing Tai Chi for the martial art, regardless of, how you're practicing it, the benefits are still there. The benefits
Right.
of being able to be aware of what your body is doing at all times, being aware of how your body, moves in space, actually paying attention to that proprioception as you're moving, and being mindful throughout a movement. Because, as I look back on a lot of my previous training as a little girl in karate and kajikembo and Filipino martial arts, I realized that many times all of us at one point or another, we start a movement and then we pay attention to the end part of the movement. We pay attention to the result. How many times do we pay attention to everything from the beginning of the movement to the result of that movement? And I know when I was a kid that I did a lot of, okay, well, he fell down, so I did the throw right. But how do I know that I did it the way that my teacher wanted it to be? Because I know as a kid, I don't think I was paying attention to what was going on from point A to point B in its entirety. You were going to say something?
Well, it's just interesting that in when you get into the upper levels of kickboxing, when you're in competing, there were times when my opponent would slow way down, and it was because I was hyper aware of what was happening, and I would see every molecule of his body or her body moving toward me, and
you're like, what's going on?
It's happened several times throughout my career, both in public when I was bouncing in a bar, and as well as in competing in kickboxing. But to be able to see everything slow way down, and you actually watching here, if you just look peripherally, you don't stare at their eyes, you just you expand your peripheral vision, you see every little ounce of movement that they make, and you'll know long before the punch gets there or the kick gets there or knee gets there what it's going to be. And there were times when I would be watching that coming and going, okay, I've got about 20 options that I can do right now at this very second. But that second seemed like it was 100 seconds. And I was just watching very slow motion, but I'd be able to watch their entire movement and see everything coming in. And then all of a sudden it's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
But to be able to see that from point A to point B and everything in between.
Yeah.
It's pretty magical.
It's a skill that has a learning curve, and I think that for anyone to do Tai Chi, no matter when they start, it's that journey of like learning to pay attention, to be hyper aware of every movement or every second of every movement that you do. Not in an obsessed way, paying attention, but being mindful
Right.
of it.
And it's not just your arm, it's your whole body,
Yeah.
your entire body and how it moves.
One of my coaches, he described the awareness of Tai Chi as kind of like, well, he told our class, because he was a guest instructor, he told our class, have you ever like tried moving like a big table or a refrigerator into a room? Like you buy a new one, or you're moving to a new house. If you ever tried moving like a big table or a big chair into a room, and the door is in a place where it's kind of weird because there's a wall in the way, and we're like, we all said, yeah, we've all done that. And he's like, you have to work with somebody else on the other side of that refrigerator or that couch to make sure, number one, you get that couch in that room, and number two, you don't slam your knuckles in the door or slam your knuckles up against a wall. And being able to control your fine motor movements with not only another person, but with that couch and your surroundings, that is the mindset for Tai Chi. And we were all like,
in harmony, and the
Exactly.
Aikido principle, in harmony with the opponent, and in this case, the refrigerator.
In the refrigerator, yeah, exactly. If you want to keep your knuckles from slamming the door. And it's true. And that second that either person moving the refrigerator gets out of sync with their own movements or the refrigerator, bam, they stub their toe or slam their knuckles into the doorway, and then they go, stop, gotta drop it,
Right.
And it just messes everything up. And and it's a skill to
it truly is when you can relate it to fighting. There were the times when I'd see something coming at me in slow motion, I would be able to break their rhythm, and
because you have that
and
time.
prevent them from being able to perform what they were going to throw, whether it was a punch or a kick, it didn't matter. But hitting their core and their center line, I would be able to attack that and stop them from doing what they were already thinking of doing, and they're starting to execute their strike. And I was able to see it and be able to prevent it from happening.
Yep.
Yeah, and anticipation in the martial arts, similar to anticipation in my other favorite sport, tennis, where I can anticipate the opponent's move, or what shot they're possibly going to hit from a certain position where they're close to the body. It normally goes cross court around here. They could go down the line, things like that. And you got to anticipate that. But also that comes with experience as well.
It does. I mean, especially when you lob that ball over and it's so close to them that there's only two ways they can hit it back.
Yeah.
Right. Because the game so well, you go, okay, there's only one way or two ways you can do this. And how is he going to do it?
Yeah.
Right.
And and that's the beauty of, well, in any martial art, in fact, as we all go through any, martial art and get, into the skilled levels, we all go through, we all end up with the same skill that Tai Chi allows. It's just that we come at that same skill a little differently. In Tai Chi, we practice our movements very slowly, but it doesn't matter what martial art any of us do, we all end up with that same skill to be able to be mindful of all our movements.
If you train in it long enough,
exactly,
and you're more self-aware,
yes,
you definitely can.
It just so happens though that Tai Chi nowadays, is often put on the same, I guess, table as, like, let's say yoga, or other similar type of activities, right? And if anything, if someone doesn't want the martial side of Tai Chi, then you'll still be learning the martial movement, but because of the whole yin and yang aspect of that is stereotypically a part of Tai Chi, then anyone can practice Tai Chi. You don't have to be a martial artist, you don't have to be old. When I trained in China, there were little kids as young as 5 years old, practicing Chen Tai Chi out on the street or in the park.
Mm.
5 years old,
Yeah.
of all
Awesome.
things.
It's
you know?
part of the culture.
Yeah.
It's not so uncommon,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And then, but on the other hand, visiting the Tai Chi schools, you would see also in a Tai Chi school, people practicing Sanda and Sansho, or what we would know as, the Chinese kickboxing, right? They'd have the
Right.
gear on and their
Right.
boxing gloves and their shorts and their, training pads,
Looking
for
for
training.
Kung Lee.
Yeah. And they're kicking fast and they're hitting fast. And you're thinking, oh my God, they're doing Tai Chi and they're just going at it, like how she would go at it, like in her matches. And I'm like, how is this Tai Chi? How is
Here's the interesting thing: your subconscious mind doesn't differentiate between
slow
fast
and
slow.
fast. That's what I tell
So
all of my students.
whatever you can
yeah.
do slowly, you can do quickly. As long as
Exactly.
the proper mechanics are there
And the
you
training
can do
is
it.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many benefits to these traditional martial arts.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of the general public don't realize that. They just see the one aspect, or in the ring.
Yeah, in the ring or the TV.
Well, not only that, but
TV
there are
time.
so many parents that walk in and they come in with their child, and in their mind, they're kind of like, "Can you do something with this kid?" Because
Yeah.
I'm fed up to here. I can't take it anymore.
Right.
We're
It's
not.
got to be reinforced at home, Mr. and Mrs. Parent, but
Exactly. But they read it
twice a week,
now.
whatever.
Yes,
They read it
helps with
online.
discipline.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things they zero in on. What?
They help
It
with,
helps
yeah,
discipline?
it helps with
Okay.
discipline. Then I'm
Here.
gonna take my problem child to a dojo and say, fix my kid. And it's kind of like, how about you take classes, Mom?
Yeah.
That way we can fix you first.
Yeah. Well, in Australia, I was calling that, there's a petrol station, or what we call a gas station, called BP. BP. And I have another name called bad parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, or
They
poor
speak from BP, bad parenting, and unfortunately, a lot of people out there should not have children.
I agree, but how many classes are available for parenting?
No, there's not. That's right.
Yeah.
0. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
That's why we need a license to drive. We need licenses for this. We need degrees for this and that. Yeah, parenting skills. And unfortunately, in a lot of these psychologists, I've dealt with all of these over the years with anti-bullying courses we did together, things like that, and just generically. And unfortunately, it's called patterning, where a bad parent will become another bad parent, and through the kids and violent behavior and things like that, which is a major issue. Now, I am a believer that if everybody did traditional martial arts with the correct good instructor, that's very has the moral views and it teaches the philosophy of the martial art and the respect and the discipline that comes with the movement and everything, and how not to fight, teach you how not to fight rather than how to fight. It's the opposite of Cobra Kai, right? And so more self-defense, then I believe that the world would be a better place, because I know that traditional and the less violence. And because you know what it's like, the more you do martial art, the less likely, except for sport, of course, it's different from kickboxing, the sport in the ring, you're less likely you want to fight in a real situation, right?
Right.
Because you know that our ability could really hurt somebody, and we don't want to do that to anybody. And I'm always saying, you only use this technique if your life's in danger.
Right.
They'll leave you to say that out. Only use this if your life is in danger. There's plenty of stuff you can use from the Aikido, Hapkido principles, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, etc., that can wrist lock, police lock, get away, avoid, redirect, hit a nerve point and get away from the situation without having to go bah, 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 bah. Otherwise, but of course, in the sport of kickboxing, that's where you score your points, right? But on the street, you don't score points. You've got to get away and have that confidence. You can talk your way out of it and a whole bunch of other stuff. But leading into personal development from, the martial art, and I believe it is easily the world's best personal development system. And it's even Anthony Robbins, the big speaker, motivational speaker, who's a first degree. Well, first, just for those, let's clarify something. Dan is the Asian term, Dan, degree. I know American use more degree. Where I'm from, Australia, we use the Dan, D-A-N. But either way, degree, Dan. It's on our certificate, Dan, -degree, whatever. So he got a first degree in Taekwondo. And a lot of his principles, breaking the wood and things like that. And you can do it kind of stuff is based off martial arts principles. And also there was another doctor, Gross, in New Zealand. I think it was a New Zealander, the country next to Australia, and like neighbors, like you in Canada. So there's water in between. And he had black belt of the mind, right? He wasn't even a black belt. So people were saying to me, hey, you've got all these black belts, 7th Dan, and all over the years, all the Dans and Hapkido and Taekwondo and won world champs and done this and done that. Why is this guy using black belt in mind? Black belt idea. I said, yeah, well, black belt is a terminology of obviously achieving at a certain level, but really it only means to know your basics.
Right.
Done is where you get your basics under control. And then you're meant to continue, but then a lot of people don't for certain reasons, and some do, some don't, some become instructors, whatever. So, but the black belt of the mind idea in personal development is that achievement. So also it's like when you're saying to somebody, I know these guys, I didn't do it so much about the black belt, but a lot of people did, you are black belt, sell that theory of the black belt. Which is the ultimate thing. But of course, to get that, you have to do 3 to 4 to 5 years training,
right.
quite a few times a week, and practice to get to that level, obviously. So they forget about that. If you've got to start at the beginning, you can start at white belt, right? So
right.
Said a black belt's a white belt never gave up. But so in that regard, let's talk about personal development and also sports performance. I know that definitely, the martial artists helped me massively in my tennis career, and now I'm doing pickleball, which is, I don't know if you heard about pickleball?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we play it over here.
Oh, you do? Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. In fact, pickleball itself, if I remember correctly, pickleball itself was invented on some island over here in Washington, like Bainbridge Island or something island, by two fathers.
Yes.
So yeah. So out here in Washington somewhere, two fathers invented pickleball. I think.
And
so
they pickleball because their dog was named Pickles, used to run around and pick up the ball for them.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
My dog gets a ball. My dog's named Keto after Hapkido. Of course,
Right?
And it's have you tried it?
Pickleball?
Yeah.
When I was when it was actually part of our physical education curriculum when I was a child. What about you?
No, I just tried it once or twice with a friend, and that was it.
Yeah, it was part of our physical education gym class when I was in elementary school and middle school and high school, and we had to learn how to play pickleball. And gosh, pickleball leagues since the time I was in school have just blew up. Like lots of pickleball leagues all over the place. I was like, I really didn't know that pickleball had gotten so popular. We thought it was, when I was a kid, we thought it was just a toned down version of tennis or badminton, right? We thought it was just a toned down version for kids, but wow, it's big.
Well, I played tennis and badminton in high school, as well as archery and a few other things, but I didn't do pickleball until years later.
It's addictive, like martial arts is.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, we had to learn
Get more rallies than tennis. I mean, I love, of course, I love both. I actually put together last year in the pandemic, of course, well, still kind of in it, but I put together America's first what you call external city versus city pickleball league. I just went into it full time. I had a back problem from playing on these hard courts in tennis here, so I just put myself to pickleball for the year and played it all the time, and loved it. We're now having Huntington Beach from Orange County defeat South Bay Los Angeles in last year's final in December.
Nice.
And they had the six teams from different cities playing off twice and doing semis and finals. People, it's just other than my tennis skills, I think the martial art reflexes help. It's like doing knife hand strikes. Bah, 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 bah.
Right.
That's right.
Boom, 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 boom. And you're evading the ball to go out, right? Because head high, let them fly. They say you can evade the ball to go out, but you can't put your hand up like a block because it'll hit you and you'll lose a point.
Yeah.
So I had to train myself. I'm so used to blocking or doing. I had to train myself to paddle down.
Hit it with this. Gotta hit it with that.
I put my paddle down to just about drop it to get a ball that's going so I wouldn't hit it when it was just going out. But sometimes it's hard not to do that because it comes.
Yeah, because you're used to having to.
First legal sport you can, other than martial arts, if you put pads on, have a bit of fun with each other, you can actually hit somebody and they love it. It doesn't hurt. Yeah. It's just a waffle ball. Yeah, it can hurt a little bit, but generally not much. It's pretty safe and it goes slower through the air. And so it's so much fun. And that's what I'm doing in Ashland, Oregon, to do with my Aussie sport resort. I'm calling it, or I'm mixing in the martial art, self-defense lessons, defense fit to music, which is a good one for the women. They love that, to all the music and things like that. And I'll talk about women's self-defense in a minute with you. And also pickleball, tennis. Spec tennis is another one, mini tennis as well, but more like tennis, but on the same size as pickleball court, which is the size of badminton court for those who don't know. And and also the Australian sports of rugby league, tag, where you take, not to barrel somebody over.
Barrel someone over kind of rugby, yeah.
Tag rugby. Have you heard of cricket?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's
a tennis ball or something, not a cricket ball. And Aussie rules football, where you kick the ball through the post. So I'm bringing those sports to America as part of my multi-sports program.
Cool, because I think that would be really
the main
cool.
thing.
That I mean, like here in the United, here there are high schools that will play, that have lacrosse teams, or I think there is at least one high school in this area that has a cricket team.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to check on that because there wasn't a cricket team when I was going to high school, but cricket, stuff like that, like cricket.
Rugby, I think they do rugby, Australian rugby here too.
Rugby, I think rugby would be cool. And I think there are like indoor rugby, like informal games and other things like English bat and trap is, something that, I'm trying to introduce to my PE classes. So that way it's not as boring as I'm not saying the baseball is boring, but my kids want, something different in my PE classes that I teach at a school. So I've been trying to introduce a way to introduce, the British bat and trap game, but a bat and trap set is expensive and my kids would just break it. So, so I'm trying to figure out ways to build my own, traps and stuff like that for bat and trap. And anyway, so a lot of great games from overseas are starting to be popular.
There's another called speed minton, which is like badminton with a faster ball, different color.
Oh, cool! I didn't.
Speed minton. There's so many cool games out there, and in martial art, it's just been so good for the reflexes and coordination, balance, on the physical side, and spiritual. It really combines everything spiritually, mentally, physically.
Mm-hmm.
And also just mental toughness. I've had a lot of comments on the tennis court, so mentally tough. And I said, well, you could put that down to my martial art training, I think, which is that. And confidence, with confidence, you can do anything. So it's very important that how it develops confidence and the philosophy that goes with it. But also, you got the self-defense aspect, you got the whole personal development aspect, the physical aspect of coordination, balance, reflexes, fitness, and everything. But also the key is, I think, the thing is with the karate martial art, generically, karate is a generic term in America for martial arts, as you know. In Australia, it's not. We have karate, Shotokan, different styles of karate, Kyokushin, all that different styles of karate as a Japanese term. But so we use the term more martial arts in Australia. And I know here they use a generic term, karate. I know that Grandmaster Bong Sohana Hapkido used to call it Hapkido karate, even though Hapkido is Korean and karate is Japanese. But because it was America, karate was a generic term for martial arts as a Japanese system as well.
Isn't that funny?
And Kempo.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I was asked. And Kempo. And I was asked one time to teach for a community center. And I went to talk to the program director at this community center. And they said, so we're going to go ahead and write this in our brochure as, karate class. And I said, well, I teach Kung Fu. And then and it was just the way that the guy, answered me. He kind of like, it was almost like he was a little bit talking down to me, and he's like, we're going to call it karate.
Oh, really?
Right. And I was like, excuse me, and he goes, well, we're going to call it karate to get people in, and then you can school them on what it really is. And then I said, and then what's going to happen is that all those kids and adults are going to go, well, why did this stupid community center call it karate then? And it's really going to reflect on your community center. How about we just call it kung fu, right?
Yeah.
And no, we're going to call it karate and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, then I can't do this.
That's indicative of people who, like when my grandmaster, Jimmy H. Wu, came to America and he wanted to open a kung fu school, nobody knew what kung fu was, so he had to call it karate.
Right.
Because everybody knew what karate was.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And if and I get it, and I said, well, I get it. I exactly call the grappling part of Kaji Kembo and Kung Fu and One Up Kendo Shuai Jiao. No one's not gonna know what that is, right?
Right.
So why don't we just call it jujitsu? But see, if we did something like that, then in a way it's kind of disrespectful to BJJ, because what I'm doing is not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? So, but it was just how you're right, how like many people use karate as a generic term, because according to the guy, he said parents know what karate is.
Right.
And I went, okay, all right, but I'm still not going to teach this class.
Well, I should have called the last Jackie Chan movie the Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah.
Jackie was Kung Fu, right?
Call it the Karate Kid.
I don't know why they did. I don't get it. Why did they need to call it the Karate Kid just because the original one was called Karate Kid? And Jackie Chan's a Chinese stylist of Kung Fu.
Right. Go figure.
Called the Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah. But it was like, the kids that watched it back then in the 80s are now having kids, and those kids are old enough to find out what the hype was when their parents were kids. So, okay, here's Karate Kid, but we're going to put a modern spin on it and have it be Kung Fu in China. It made no sense that it was called Karate Kid. But yeah, whatever. It's neither here nor there. But you're right. Karate is still is a lot of times used as a generic. It's like using the word Kleenex.
That's right.
Like tissue paper. You got a Kleenex.
There you go.
Toilet paper, toilet paper, a Kleenex.
Wax on, wax off with Kleenex.
Exactly, right? It's like I think it's become almost a brand name of sorts
that's right.
To describe any kind of martial art. So, but you're right in that aspect.
Yeah, exactly. So now let's talk about women in the martial arts.
Yes.
Two of the most prominent, along with Cynthia Rothrock and a few others, Karen Eben and Hardman and a bunch of others. So there's some very prominent women in the martial arts, and you're an incredible, great example to what can be achieved. So in advertising, there's a term saying some will, some won't, so what, right? So in martial arts, of course, of what I've done in Australia from 1985, being the first instructor to teach at schools. In 1987, I taught the first Hapkido women's only class to get women into it, because I was sick of seeing women poke their head through the doors when I was training in the 80s and then disappear again because oh, God.
And they're like, holy God, I'm out of here. Bye. Yeah.
So I'm getting out of here, I'm telling you. I'm breaking the wood and everything. They're just freaking out. I would just and I saw a major need for it. I had to teach a friend self-defense after she'd been raped. It was very, very, and gave a lot of confidence from that. I started that at that time with my fiance at the time and her friends teaching them women's self-defense. I saw a huge need for it. I studied every book on it, went through all the holds and grabs and did everything, as well as obviously training in all the different martial arts and settling with Grandmaster Sung Sili and Hapkido and Taekwondo. But I was very self-defense orientated from the beginning, and that's why I became the world self-defense champion, going to all these tournaments, because that's what I do, self-defense, as far as throwing the guys around. And I loved every aspect of martial arts as well and did all of them. But the self-defense for women really, and I had a great success for a 13-year-old back in the 80s at a well-to-do school in a well-to-do area, North Shore of Sydney, where I was born and bred. I was born in Chatswood in Sydney, Australia, which is north side. And I was teaching at a school, I can mention it, Ravenswood School in Gordon area in North Shore, not far from Chatswood, a few suburbs up. And we were halfway through a 10-week school course. And we're doing, literally, I was doing the mouth gag, like, I drilled it, bam, 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 you know, bah, bah, you know, whatever, just boom, 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 this technique, and bam, bam, rip that thumb off. You can't get the thumb, rip it, scratch the hand, and then hit straight in the groin, open them up, and bam, straight in the throat, or in the throat, depending on how far away they were, etc., etc. So we drilled that, right? This is about halfway through the course. So the following, hey, pussycat, hello, cat keto, or I'll change my t-shirt to cat keto. All right, so
always manages to come up here.
That's cute. It's cute. I should get keto in, but I gave her a good run before, so she's asleep at the moment. So I was hoping she wouldn't bark when I was doing this.
When something important's happening.
Always.
Cute. So anyway, yeah, so she comes to the next lesson, shaking like this, shaking. Mr. Gill, I had to use the techniques. And she's still.
Oh, wow.
I said, what happened? And she said, it was at a park at St. Ives, which is, again, right near Gordon in Australia, very well-to-do area. North Shore and Eastern Suburbs are the two well-to-do, I suppose you call it. So areas nothing meant to go wrong. In St. Ives, she was literally dragged to a toilet block.
Oh, my God.
Towards a toilet block, so we know what was going to happen there. And she did exactly the same technique. She went bam, 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 and then he went down. She gave her an extra kick to the face. She showed me the blood on the sneaker.
Oh, wow.
Nose busting. And the good thing is the police got him as well.
Good.
So number one, she got away. Number two, she probably stopped someone else getting raped, because you know what they're like. Once they get away with it once, they probably do it again.
Right.
So that's why it's important everyone learns self-defense, not just protect themselves, but, to teach these bastards a lesson, these rapists or criminal, violent people a lesson. Doesn't have to overdo it, but just definitely boom, 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 and then get away. That's the idea. But so she was so thankful, and now she's probably married with kids and whatever else, and she's probably fine. Otherwise, psychologically, she could have been traumatized. I don't know how bad. Obviously, it was pretty obvious if they drag you to a toilet block, what was going to happen. It would have been right at the age of 13. 13, so she would have been just disgusting. So it could have really ruined her life. And so, and I've had, probably 20 odd women since then, and probably more that I don't know of, that comes, oh, thank God I learnt this, I got away, or I just blocked and moved, or a sexual harassment, or I twist his hand away and he kind of went, oops, I think she knows what she's doing, things like that, and got away from those situations. So the thing is, it's good that, and ever since then, as I said, after doing women's only and having Yvette and Susan and all these red and black belts get to red first, then I let the men in at red belt. When my seniors, Yvette, Susan, Kerry, a bunch of the other ones back in the 80s, got 87, 88, when I was teaching that class, by the time they got to red belt in 88, then I let the guys in. So then we had 50-50. So then when women came in, they go, oh, cool. Like all the seniors are women.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
That's the idea. And then the guys are behind there, and then I was like, okay, Yvette, can you take new student Fiona? I'll take the guys of you, whatever, and then we'll switch. That was great. And they felt so much more confident. And ever since then, I always had the 50-50 kind of thing, it was really good. We're still, sometimes to today, martial art is still fairly dominated by men. So how can the thing is, how do we go about understanding that women getting into it, or generically, do you think that, what's the situation? Do you think that they don't necessarily want to get a black belt? I suppose they call it a kids thing these days, get your belts and the colors, and the adults don't have time anymore, and whatever else. They'd kind of like to do it, but they can't. There's no family classes. There's no Pacific women's classes. What's your experience? And I know obviously you look after women because you're women instructors, but around America in general about women doing martial arts or at least self-defense courses.
It's so much better now than it was in the 80s. So much better. And women now, you know, they're not looked at strangely if they're doing martial arts. They're not saying, oh, you're just going to do a self-defense course, and which people on the outside world wouldn't take seriously. And, you know, they just say, oh, okay, well, I hope that works for you. Great. But, you know, women now, when they're training in martial arts, whatever the martial art is, they're taken seriously and they take it seriously.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, you know, I, you know, throughout the years, like, and you know this too, right? Back in the 80s, you know, late 70s and, you know, 80s and stuff like that, you know, it was primarily a male dominated activity. Even as kids, I think there were only like 4 girls in my karate class when I was taking karate. And altogether, up until when I was studying up to be a black belt, there might have been only 8 in the 5 years that it took me to get my black belt. Right. And when I did get a black belt, there was only 2 women in my staff that had a black belt, me and another woman named Denise Garcia. And that was it back in 1982. And for that particular style, right? And all the other styles of karate might have had more women, but in the style that I took, there was only 2 women black belt at that time. And it was kind of like, wow. And I thought the same thing. How do we get more women in here? And, you know, it does help now that there are many great women role models out there, like, you know, Cynthia Rothrock, you know, Kat, and many other people out there, Andrea Harkins, and, you know, a lot of women martial artists out there that are writing books and are getting out in the media, and providing kind of like that sense of support for women. I mean, you know, another thing that I thought was kind of interesting, you know, back in the 80s was that, you know, I would hear a lot of guys saying, I'd really like my girlfriend to learn self-defense, you know, or father saying, I'd really like my daughter to learn self-defense. But the men themselves were not in the military or didn't take a martial art either. So it kind of alluded to men already should know how to fight. Women don't, so they should take a self-defense class. And so I, you know, when I thought about that going, well, why is that guy saying I want my girlfriend to learn self-defense, but that guy was never in the military. That guy's never done martial arts before. Oh, it's because, you know, you think guys should already know how to fight.
Stereotype in that regard, men are though.
Exactly. So it was kind of like, I think at that time, back in the 80s, even in the early 90s, attitudes like that,
I don't think it was necessarily a bad attitude.
Well, no, it wasn't.
Was just an attitude of not even an attitude, but just something that, you know, I want to make sure that my girl,
no,
by herself can protect herself.
No, I wasn't like downplaying it. I mean, of course, it was great that, you know, the dad is saying, I want my daughter to learn self-defense or my girlfriend to learn self-defense. But the attitude of, well, okay, let's just say I'm, you know, a dude, and I said, I want my girlfriend to learn self-defense. I've never been in the military. I've never taken martial arts before. I haven't even taken a fighting class or a boxing class. So my girlfriend needs self-defense. I don't.
Yeah,
that's kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean.
I take a self-defense.
Can't fight anyway. And when they do, it's like.
Well, I've always wondered about that. But instead of why don't I take a self-defense class with my girlfriend, it's more like I want my girlfriend to take self-defense. Well, why not you?
Well, I think honestly the mentality there is they're aware of the fact that women are more targeted than men.
That's true.
And
that's true.
They probably are not going to run into a situation where they need to defend themselves, where their girlfriend will be more likely to than he will.
Yeah. No, so, I get that. I'm like I said, I'm not downgrading.
No, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
he probably is thinking, well, I don't get into fights, so, but my girlfriend could be attacked, and I would hate for that to happen to her, and I can't teach her, so I need somebody else to teach her, right?
That's a good way of looking at it,
Yeah.
but back then I thought of it as, girls shouldn't learn how to defend themselves and guys shouldn't. And, for some women,
right, but guys need to.
Well, yeah,
right?
but for some women,
both ends, that's right. Both ends, guys get too much alcohol, look what happens there.
Yeah, right. And,
Yeah.
back then there weren't very many groups that would be like a safe, not a safe haven, but a sense of support for, learning martial arts. Like you had a great, thing with having the first women's only Hapkido group. Here in the States, we have what's called the Pacific Association of Women Martial Artists, which is a women's only organization that primarily takes up the West Coast. And then you've got your...
it was founded in the early 70s too.
Yeah.
Which is
cool.
During really that cool time when the 70s, where it was all about, well, gosh, female equality was a thing in the 70s as well. And still primarily, martial arts was a male-dominated thing. And there are other women's only organizations now that are providing great, support and networking for women in the martial arts. However, unfortunately, these organizations aren't as big as, like, let's say,
Taekwondo.
Like the Taekwondo organizations or the ITF or the ATF or,
yes.
Or the big karate, organizations. These organizations are still relatively small, with, like, let's say maybe 500 members in each organization as opposed to thousands. But I think that, that women in the martial arts, getting more women in the martial arts would be very good in that it will allow more women to become role models for young girls and teen girls coming up.
There are universities in the United States that do hire and teach martial arts instructors. They don't teach the martial arts instructor, but they hire a martial arts instructor to teach martial arts, part of the curriculum, which is something I wish would happen more of. Because it doesn't matter what the martial art is, it's the instructor that makes or breaks it.
Well, exactly. They're going to make it fun and interesting, and you don't hear the word fun as much in martial art as it should be. I always thought it was just fun and development and challenging, and
it can be challenging and fun and what's the word? Thought-provoking and stuff like that. But I also think that, these days, a lot of people are all about, does it work in the ring? Does it work in the street? That kind of thing, and that can be kind of like daunting for a woman that's looking to get into martial arts when, there are people going, oh, well, you don't want to take this martial art because it's BS because, it doesn't work in the street or it doesn't work in the ring or you can't tap someone out.
Get that. The internet's an interesting thing.
Yeah, right. And it's kind of like, and then now you've got this woman that may or may not want, martial arts specifically for self-defense. Maybe some gal wants to get into Aikido for the cultural aspect and not,
right. I think we need to, definitely market that more than just the word self-defense, because that's obviously important, but the overall concept of personal development, fitness, mental clarity, mental toughness, which will help other sports, comes through the traditional martial art training. And it's also just really interesting. It's just, again, like I was talking about patterning with bad parenting, you get patterning with bad martial arts instructors. The pattern comes down. Not saying they're bad as in like Cobra Kai kind of stuff or anything like that necessarily, but just the way they teach, like teach a total. I've had people come back to me and say, I didn't like martial arts. Why not? I didn't like the rolling and falling, for example. And I go, when did this happen? When did they teach you rolling and falling? Oh, the first lesson. Okay, you're kidding me.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Another person says, I didn't like sparring. I don't like the fighting aspect. When was this introduced to you? The first lesson or second lesson. I'm going, really?
Oh
Wow.
my
You know who
God.
the martial art instructor is? I'll have a little chat to them. Oh my goodness. It's the way you're introduced to it.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
truly is the way.
That is-
I loved mathematics at school because I had a good maths teacher. I hated physics, even though they're kind of technically related, because I had a really bad physics teacher.
Yep.
I started, I had psychology classes in high school, and my teacher was so brilliant and so creative. And I loved psychology and wanted to become a shrink when I got out of high school.
Mhm.
I'd already had 2 years of college in, so I was all well on my way until I opened a martial arts school. But you know what?
You're
I've
still
been able to help more people through martial arts than I
Yeah.
have ever would have through psychology.
Mhm.
So I'm so grateful
Very
that I
personally satisfying as an instructor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'd never forget the time when I went and got some gas back in Australia. We call it petrol in Australia.
Yes. Really where?
Petrol station rather than a gas station. Oh, BP, petrol station, bad parenting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And I'm pumping away at my Lexus, and and this the guy, the attendants are staring at me through the window, and I'm going, because in Australia you pay for your gas afterwards.
Ah.
Uh-huh.
Right? They trust Australians are very trustworthy. So, and I'm thinking, is this guy thinking I'm going to steal drive off or something? What's going on? I'm in a Lexus, nice car. What's going on? And he's just staring at me like in shock, kind of thing. And I went, okay, I'll go and pay for the gas now. And I went in, and I just walked in. He goes, "You're John Gill." I went, yes. What have I done wrong? Yes, John Gill. And he goes,
What?
What I do?
what is it? And he goes, I'm David Bradfield. You taught me martial arts back in the Hapkido back in Roseville back in the 80s. I go, and 90. Oh, g'day, how are you, mate? That's good because he's obviously grown up now. And he was he's pumping gas. Job. I said, no, I'm at university. I think because I said he's at university. He was just doing this part-time job and everything. And I said, that's great, mate. And he got black belt with me. So did his brother Peter. And they're actually famous because their great grandfather did the architecture for the Harbour Bridge, Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is very famous, like the Golden Gate Bridge, famous. And they called it Bradfield Highway, which is their last name, right? Named after him. So anyway, I said, "How's life, mate?" And he goes, "Oh, great, thanks to you." And I went, "Oh, okay. Thanks to me, what do you mean?" So I've just felt so, I've never had to use it, but I felt so confident. I just feel developed. I just feel, I've been did really well at school, now university. I just feel great. And I go, "Oh, thanks, mate." I'm sure your parents have something to do with it as well, because I remember the parents are very nice.
How cool is that when you meet your students like years later, right? How cool is that? That's pretty cool.
It made me feel so good.
Right? That they still remember.
All my life was making other people feel good, and I felt so good as a back from that. You know what I mean? And that's where it's it's just fantastic. It makes, and same with you guys. You must have empowered so many people over the years and made them feel so good about themselves and more confident.
We still get I still get people if I'm walking in downtown Seattle. I'll get sometimes Sensei De Jesus.
Yeah, there you go.
Who the heck calls me sensei anymore? Because it's been like 20 years since anyone's called me sensei. And I'll turn around and here comes somebody with a briefcase or something like that. Sensei, you remember me? You taught me karate at Jefferson Community Center like in 1980, blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like, what's your name?
Oh my God.
What's your name?
It's people who have met me in the early 90s when I was just,
when
I was fighting.
Get it too.
We took a picture together and they're like, "Yeah, I remember you on your fight when you fought in Las Vegas, and I was there on the third row, and afterwards we talked, and I'm looking at him going, I wish I remembered who you were. I'm so sorry." But it was one of those things where, because of you, my daughter got into kickboxing and she blah blah blah, and it's just really wonderful and humbling, very humbling.
It is,
because when you're in a public eye, especially, you're being scrutinized and you're being looked at. And what you say and what you do is noticed whether you think it is or not.
Yeah.
It is.
Like, you know,
When you're
we met
teaching,
that.
and what you say when you're teaching, what you do when you're teaching is very noticed, whether
Yeah.
you realize it or not.
Remember when I have a
Yes.
colleague that I know that met Kat at a martial art event, Lori O'Connell.
Yeah.
And Lori O'Connell, my friend Lori O'Connell said after meeting Kat and finding out that that she was the stunt double for Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman in the movie Batman Returns,
Yeah.
he said, and I kid you not, she said, you know, you're the reason why I got into martial arts. She wanted to be able to do something like that, to be able to do stunts and stuff. And she is now, a master or a Renchi in her style.
That is
of martial
awesome.
art
See,
now.
this is so much. It's great hearing those stories, isn't it? It makes
It
it feel
is,
so
you
good.
know,
There's nothing
this-
more powerful than self-empowerment than help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is what we need because, you know, that lady that got into martial art because of Kat, you know, it's because they see that positive role model and they think, well, if she can do it,
Yes,
I
then
can do it.
And no
You
matter what the
know.
obstacles are, it can be done. And you just have to find, if you can, find the right instructor, somebody who will, pull you forward and help you evolve and grow and become, what you need to be.
Yeah, and that goes for
what you know
both
you
men and
can
women.
be.
Yeah. And that goes for both
True.
men and women in that aspect.
Absolutely
but, You
true.
know,
This is where it's been just so awesome to have you two, as role models, along with the member. Because Kathy, you're the one. You and Cynthia are the one in Australia, obviously, back in the 80s and 90s. I just getting Black Belt magazine and Taekwondo Times and Kung Fu magazine and getting them, sent over and we're getting them from I had them in the often news agents as well, which is great. So I used to read about you then.
mhm.
And then to
Yeah.
finally meet you in 1998 at the American Black Belt Championships. I know you're busy, you probably don't remember me, but it was amazing. We're meeting there, and you were one of the judges, and it was that was a buzz of a tournament because Bill Superfoot was there as well, and Bill ended up coming. I brought Bill to Australia in 1999, and we did a month tour together. And Joshua, one of the twins of the Tai Chi, came over. So we did 4-hour interactive seminars where Josh had opened up with a Tai Chi.
Nice.
Warm up,
Nice.
breathing, getting everyone's breathing and stretching. And then I'd go in with a Hapkido and throw them all around, teach them how to throw people around. And then Bill would do his, or vice versa. The Bill would come in and do his super kicking, super foot.
Mhm.
And we had so much fun for a month in Australia there with Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. And because I'd followed Bill before that as well a long time with this. I got my hook kick from him.
Nice.
I went to so many seminars as with Dan Santo and Larry Hartzell.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Greater in the 80s. So I used to go to their seminars when they were here in the 80s, early 90s,
Yeah. Nice.
And along with being taught by what I consider just the greatest man on the planet, great Grandmaster Sang Soo Lee. Sang Soo Lee, my Grandmaster, is 9th Dan in Hapkido and Taekwondo since the mid-80s, been taught by him. After having previous experience before that with different instructors were great as well, but just Sang Soo Lee, we've had this great relationship. And this is why I've had such a positive experience in the martial arts through Sang Soo Lee, Graham O'Donnell before that, another great instructor in Taekwondo ITF I had as well. The Taekwondo is fantastic, and with the kicking and all that. But obviously, my main career was through winning these world champs, US nationals, and everything through, and the American black belts, Korean division through self-defense. With the Hapkido, was really self-defense orientated. Because as you know, with forms in Taekwondo karate, you do patterns and forms, and Pumse they call it in Korean, of course, Taekwondo. But the Hapkido is all self-defense.
Yep.
So wrist grabs, grab this for your gradings, including finishing with 18 police locks. They called it for first dan grading or first degrees in more of America. 18 police arresting lock techniques.
Mhm.
Which, unfortunately, a lot of the police, don't really get to don't know as much as about that with these techniques, which they should. So one particular aspect I want to talk about, how does martial art relate to what's been happening in society recently, as far as we know, an extremely sad incident of George Floyd and being choked when you know, there's no excuse for that whatsoever, no matter what. I mean, look, if someone had just raped and killed a child, you'd probably understand the police officer and witnessing it, getting pretty angry at them. You know, what
you know it.
Yeah.
You know it, and it'd be hard. It would be it'd be hard not to, you know, find good justification for that.
Right.
And but again, they're still not meant to kill anybody. Obviously, they're meant to arrest them, and that's it, and then let the law system work that out. Which 99.9% of police officers do.
The officer that killed George Floyd was trained to not, and were told not to rest his knee on anybody's neck. He was told not to do that, and he did it anyway.
Right.
So I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, that is a good example.
Just because there's no excuse for that whatsoever, regardless of what George Floyd did, or was what a fake note or whatever, if that was the case, whatever it was. No excuse.
You're not resisting. It doesn't matter. You don't do that. You just don't.
He's already in handcuffs. So what you do then is you put your knee on top of his keto. It's about time she started to get excited. Keto, it's all right. Okay, the handcuffed here. So in keto, we call that a fixing technique. So, and I've done this in seminars, guys, even without loose hands, and they can't get up. You put that arm on the ground, you put your knee onto their tricep, all your weight onto their tricep. And
they're not going to go anywhere, and they're not going to die. You know?
Right. So in that position, even with the handcuffs, if they really want to hold him, the knee on the tricep. Now, I don't know, the police I've spoken to just, you know, learn to cuff and do things, but they really need to know these techniques, and they really need. Look, if I was a police officer, the first thing I would have done is do martial arts. It's like doing a 3-year science degree and then teaching science. But you're going to be a police officer where you are confronted with violence much more often than we ever are as martial artists in the street.
Exactly.
And work our butt off to become really good at it. And I know it's a sport as well, but I don't know why the police aren't really becoming a black belt, doing a traditional martial art. Now, whether the government or the police force pay for that, or whether, like as an instructor, and same with you, I'd be happy to have police, and I've done it before quite often, either give them huge discounts or you know, free seminars, whatever, to help them out, to come in a couple of times a week and actually learn these proper techniques and become a black belt. So it's like a degree, well, first degree, like a degree. And also because you need to know these things, because your taser and your gun aren't going to be there available all the time. You've got to learn how to stop someone grabbing your taser, grabbing your gun.
Exactly.
Learn how to, someone's running at you very quickly, punching at you, grabbing you. And yes, taking the ground's one thing, that's fine. But you got to learn the whole system, really. Stand up and down the ground. And, you know, and I'd rather them punch somebody than if they had to, then pull a gun on them.
Yeah. I mean, I think more so, more police officers now are not only taking martial arts for their own, you know, personal training for the job, but also for their personal, you know, enjoyment as well.
Exactly. It is fun.
Yeah, you know, and it's something that they can do and enjoy, you know, at the end of their shift or on their days off or what have you. But I do think that more police officers these days are pursuing the martial arts outside of their job. But that still kind of leaves the question, you know, is there enough training for, you know, martial art techniques, or, you know, control to subdue techniques, as opposed to, you know, just shoot, just tase, just hit with your nightstick. Is there enough? I mean, you've taught, you know, law enforcement as well.
I've had the pleasure of having students who are also police officers, and train them in Kung Fu San Soo. But, you know, a lot of what we teach in Kung Fu San Soo, you cannot do as a police officer.
Yeah. So same with Kajukenbo. You can't put your thumb in their eye and just start grabbing their head with your thumb in their eyeball.
Right. But
you can't do that.
All the locks, we have plenty of locks and leverages and things like that, you know, control techniques. We have, like Hapkido does, there's quite a bit. But all that being said, typically, you're dealing with somebody who's not on PCP or some sort of anger enhancing drug, right? That makes you gorilla strong. we're not, but police officers do deal with that
Yeah.
on a more regular basis than we do.
Exactly.
So in that respect, they have to go to extremes. I just a quick story. When I was living in Bakersfield, California, and I was learning Kali, and this the instructor would come every week and give us some instructions, and then we'd practice them. And I had Kali sticks in the car, and I was in downtown Bakersfield, and I pull up and I see this man screaming at this woman, and I could look in his eyes, and he was not there. I don't know what was going on with him, but he was just in some other world, and he was fixated on this poor little woman who was scared to death, and she was frozen in fear, and she couldn't move. And I ran up there and I got in between them and I said, "Go call the police. Just call the police now." And I got the guy's attention on me. And as he's coming toward me, I had my Kali stick with me. And as he came toward me, I stepped off to the side and I hit him in the arm. And I literally saw the bone break and shatter. I saw it break. And he came at me again, and I came low and I hit him in the shin and I broke his shin. And he came at me again and I hit him in the collarbone and broke his collarbone. And he came at me again and I hit him in the face and I crushed his face.
And he kept coming.
And he kept coming.
That's the
High on
thing.
drugs, right?
He was on PCP.
PCP.
And it took the police officers maybe 10 minutes to show up. But in that 10 minutes, I had to keep circling him and get away from him and hit him as hard as I could with the stick. And it was working, but at the same time, with a broken shin, broken arms, broken collarbone, broken face, he kept coming.
Wow.
Imagine police officers having to deal with that. It took, with all those breaks, it took 5 cops to drag him down to the ground and handcuff him.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. However, on the other side of the coin, if police officers would have taken, like, let's just say, use a nightstick or use a taser.
Right.
Because
I don't know if a taser would have worked.
Well, but to use a nightstick just to keep them
at a,
who knows? But, is a situation like, would you have shot that person? You see what I'm saying? If you were a cop.
If I were a cop and I'd hit him however many times and broken many bones, and if he kept coming at me, yeah, I might have to shoot him. But I would use my stick first.
Exactly.
I would use my taser first. I would use my pepper spray first.
I think that's part of the training that we're talking about. Yeah, how to explore that use of force continuum and how to explore less than lethal.
But they don't train it.
Yeah.
And the girl I'm friends with who's going through training now, she's not a girl, she's a woman, but she's going through training now, and they don't cover anything like that.
And that's too bad.
And thank God she's been doing martial arts, but it's not covered
enough. They might have
not covered.
And it's hard. They know they probably should do it where they get the time, because they're on so many shifts and they've got families to get back to. And it's like some of the women, also a lot of women have said, I'd love to train, but they don't have time because they've got kids to worry about, and they end up being taxi drivers to their kids and Uber drivers to their kids all the time, and they love to do it. So that's why I thought of the idea of doing I've done them anyway, a long time in Australia. It was seminars and workshops on the weekends for people who can't train in the regular classes.
Right.
So I know that most martial arts schools, and I understand, of course, if you're doing it full time as a living, you want the client to stay there as long as you can, and it's good for them as well. They work out, it's good for them. But can you actually keep someone there for years and years and years at twice a week?
Yeah.
How many people get black belt? What, 1%? Something, not even. You know what I mean? They love it. Like I still bump into people later, and they go, "Oh, I wish I kept going, but I went to university. I had to move, and I never got around to doing it again because I couldn't find you or someone like you or something or whatever." I go, "Okay, I can't be everywhere." But as COVID lifts into the end of the year next year, the idea of my martial arts super seminars, where we go around and do these weekend workshops, like I did with Bill back in Australia in 1999, and just generically myself. But what did resonate with me, I just want to tell you a quick story on when I was in the plane going to a seminar, and you sit down to somebody, you start talking as you do, because I'm pretty friendly, I'll talk to anybody anyway. They talk to me. And the lady said, so you're going back to, it was up to Brisbane, Queensland, north of where I was living at the time of Sydney. And we just thought, well, what are you doing? She said she was going back home and all that. And she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going up to teach a self-defense workshop. For a school up there, and Hapkido Taekwondo I teach, but it's just a generic self-defense one. And she said, I wish my daughter had done that. And subsequently I found out that her daughter had been raped and murdered.
Oh man.
And that just hit me like iron bar. And I thought, oh no, it just emphasizes so much more what I've been fighting for years about women learning everybody should, but just women particularly learning some really strong self-defense. And then you hear about, and it just hit me, and it just made me more determined to really promote women's self-defense and get every woman as much as possible into it and do whatever I can to get them into it. So even my YouTube channel now, I released my world's best self-defense techniques for a film many years ago back in Australia, just for free for them. I'm just trying to do everything I can through my YouTube to at least that way. And then when things open up, get them into it. And then that makes you resonate. Yes, it is important. And, the police now I see need it as well. I think it's good for everybody. And anti-bullying strategies for kids and a whole bunch of stuff, whether it's physical, verbal, everything, and personal development as a motivational tool, and doing your best kind of thing as well. It hits everything. It's fantastic. But people don't realize it, because again, it comes down to some idiot instructor getting them to do rolls and falls or sparring in their first 1 or 2 lessons and putting people off. And then realizing they think it's not for me because of that. But if you introduce slowly, when I teach a beginner, first thing I do is teach them evasion. Movement, evasion, movement, dancing, movement, footwork. First thing I teach. Then I'll put the blocks with it, boom, 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 all of that gradually. Then I'll start doing the strikes, and start with palms because a lot non-aggressive and stuff like that, and then build them into it and put music on. That's why I developed Defense Fit to music for women, Defense Fit class. So it's all the music, boom, boom, boom. And then we'll finish with holds and grabs, how to get out of a hold and grab. Now, the other problem is, we're not just talking about women being attacked on the street or being abducted or in the sex trafficking industry, which is disgusting here. And that's why I'm going to get into Portland, Oregon. And I know there's a problem with sex trafficking down this I-5, where they call it down freeways and things like that. And we've got to teach the women, and hence I'm doing my safe foundation for the prevention of violence and homelessness. And I'm going to try and teach the women free self-defense, whether they're homeless or poor or they can't afford it, whatever. So it's one thing we're going to do through that foundation, but make it fun, do it to music and that. But the thing is choking, for example, and I'm on my web, YouTube channel on TV in Australia, teaching about women's self-defense and choking. And most domestic violence in Australia, there's been 100 women approximately a year die domestic violence, and most of it, because fortunately Australia don't have guns or hardly anything. Yes, it can be knife is one thing, but it's a lot of it's just choking. And they die. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to hit the throat, hit the nose, straighten the eyes, whatever. They don't know how to do that. So they've trained. Even a non-aggressive way, if you don't want to hit your drunk husband, just like cricket ball, I was saying about cricket, from that frontal choke, just wave up, right foot, right arm, and run. And they can't hold on anyway. And they run out the back door, grab the kid or whatever, and go. Whatever. And then you've got back choke where you can come back and boom, 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 twist all the way back. I'm lounge at the moment, but things like just some basic things like that. And that doesn't take long to teach. You can do that a 4-week course and or a monthly refresher or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So
this is what I want to implement into America. And I'd love you two to be involved in the future with that. And I know you're busy with the schools up there in Washington, but of course we can, do in different capital cities or tours or whatever. And I'm going to do my, from here at the resort in Ashland and things like that, where we have weekend camps and week camps, and have people like you two as be amazing as guest instructors for women's self-defense as well.
Yeah.
And such inspiring women to get into it, so that's something we could work towards as well in the future. But you guys, before we go, I just want to talk about, the main thing is we've got to get more women into it. I think police should really do it. So I'm personally, with my classes, I'm opening a school here in Ashland, and I've got the Tai Chi twins already teaching out of Medford in Southern Oregon. So we're personally going to say, okay, so do the free women's self-defense workshops for a start. And then we've got the police. We're going to let the police come in and train at no charge, right? So because they're protecting us, and we should contribute back to them. So I am appealing to all martial art instructors to do the same. Do a free women's self-defense workshops. And
So
please,
let me ask something. If and when we offer women's self-defense courses,
yes,
one of the things that I've really noticed after teaching, especially in Kung Fu San Soo, because it's all, offensive and defensive tactics, all of it. And what I have a concern with is once I leave, they come in, they take a 2-week course.
Will they
Then they
practice
go home
afterwards?
and they don't practice anything, they don't practice anything at all. And then shit hits the fan 6 months later. And will they be able to actually defend themselves? The chances are, who knows, right? But
right, you don't know. I suppose we haven't interviewed that many people. But I've bumped into people years later, and they've said, I did have to use it. And I remember the eye gouge, the peace sign in the eyes or something. Because remember, you can take 1 or 2 things to get away. But Kathy, you're definitely right. You've got to keep practicing it. But the idea, if we did such a good job.
But do you offer that? Do you offer a place for them to come and train on their time that they can when they're available? Because when you got mothers, they're working all day and then working with their kids all night.
Right.
Or if they're working from home, they're stuck at home, especially if their kids are at home, if they're not going back to school yet, and physically they're home. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those situations where it was always a pet peeve of mine to teach a seminar, especially one geared towards self-defense, and then go home and go back to my state that I live in, and they'll bring me back in another 6 months or a year, but haven't practiced anything that I showed them. Chances are good they don't.
That's right. But at least something's better than nothing, I suppose, and introduced them to it. And I'm hoping, I have had a lot of comments when I have done seminars around Australia and New Zealand, and I also did Solomon Islands. I was sent by the Australian government back at the end of 2019 to teach. I originally was there for Joseph Dudley for seminars for his Taekwondo group, bringing Hapkido and self-defense into their system. And then the government found out about it, and I went back about 2 months later in December they sent me for helping women against domestic violence, which was a major issue in the Solomon Islands, which is an island just off Australia, right, a third world country. And it was called the 16 Days of Activism for the Prevention of Gender-Based Violence, which basically means against women and children. And that was very successful. They really loved it, and they got inspired. Now, from those 2 trips, Joseph Dudley from Ewan's Taekwondo increased his membership. So I did the seminars with him. So then they all joined the regular class. So they didn't just wait till do a seminar and disappear. Most of them joined and now getting yellow belts and all of that. So apparently, which is good, I inspired a lot of people to join his group. And that's what I also around Australia, I noticed that there's I'd give you the local guy's number. Now you can just Google and stuff like that. But because I've heard most of them anyway, I recommend Joe Blow's Taekwondo or karate or whatever in your area to continue on. So you're right, Kat, you've got to continue it. But again, a good introduction is better than no introduction.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree.
That is true.
And there are times so I remember when I was teaching Kung Fu to kids, and a parent would come and watch the class, and he saw a kid do a technique, and then he was in the park, and it was a technique where you were already on the ground, and the guy walked up to him, was pissed off at him for something. I don't remember what he did, but he remembered a technique that I had showed his son the day before. And he did it. He executed it perfectly.
How cool is
hilarious. That? Yeah. And he came to school, he goes, Sifu, guess what? This is the dad talking.
How cool is that?
I saw you teach a technique that was
interesting. So my sister-in-law, when my brother, who's a cameraman back in Australia, and when we filmed in 2004, my world's best self-defense techniques on a beach in Australia, my sister-in-law, they were editing it.
Mm-hmm.
See, and she's watching it and watching it. So as a matter of it, and she'd never done self-defense, as a matter of interest, I joked around with her and grabbed her from here, and she did the technique.
It's nice. It's amazing.
She trained in it. She just watched me so many times doing it because she was editing my video.
Exactly.
They did.
I've got kids who have younger siblings that
Yep.
will watch when they're like 2 years old or whatever, and they're too young to come into class. But when they are old enough to get into our youngest class, they already know their horse stance. They already know their punch. They already know their knife hand strike, their hammer strike, because they've been watching the class and watching their sibling do it. And it's kind of like, wow,
Yep.
well, look at that. I don't have to teach you that now. Isn't that funny?
Okay, so it was like when I did judo at 11 and 12, and at the same time watching Bruce Lee movies, right? So 1973, I was 11. So yeah, watching Bruce Lee movies. So I went into what they call first form, we used to call it then, but now it's called year 7 in school, the age of about 12. And I went in there, and because I watched so many Bruce Lee movies over and over again, I got my friends around me like Bruce Lee, and I was kicking at them without even learning kicking, because I just did judo, just was throwing them, And I was just kicking and pretending I was Bruce Lee, and I ended up getting nicknamed as Fu, as in Kung Fu, from that. And I was just being Bruce. I mean, I was lucky. I was a pretty good athlete, with the cricket and the at that stage the foot rugby league and rugby union, all this rugby union at that stage, all that kind of stuff. So I was a natural athlete, and then took up tennis at 15 after hurting my knee in football. But that's another thing. But it was amazing. I was just like just watching Bruce Lee, because the judo was just throwing and grappling, as you know,
right.
sweeps, stuff like that. There was no kicking involved. So you can, and also visualization for sport.
Yes.
Before I used to compete, obviously, in the world champs, I'd visualize, me doing the techniques, and for the self-defense of it, the guys coming in at me, they used to get out, do a wrist grab, because if you stuff it up, some of those it looks a lot easier than this, you can ruin it, or grab a knife or something or whatever, you can lose points from the judges. And I'm sure the same with the cat. So before let's go back on peak performance in sport, in your sport of kickboxing, before you competed, did you visualize yourself against that opponent? If you knew them, I suppose there's no YouTube then or anything to watch them, but either way, did you visualize yourself getting in there and, being really aggressive, or how did you cope before the events?
Before the event,
yeah.
I'm the kind of person who lives in the moment. So I didn't visualize beforehand. I just trusted that my training was adequate. I trusted.
Automatic.
Yeah, I wanted to rely on what I saw in front of me as opposed to what I was planning on doing. Or
right.
I never visualized myself with my arm raised, because I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing I could have done better when I was training. And when I was training, my trainer was torturous. There's no matter what, I mean, all the guys that I trained with, he would let them take a break, and I was never allowed to.
Wow.
When we did hell days, I was never allowed to. They'd stop and barf because they're, halfway through running, and whatever, bleachers and wind sprints and, jump squats, and you name it, we had to do it. And I wasn't allowed to quit, but they were. And it was something that, I think just as a matter of, he wanted to make me tougher than all the guys, because I was the only woman there. And it was also my school. We were running it together, but he decided to become my coach in kickboxing.
Right.
And, it got to the point where I could run faster than all the guys and last longer than all the guys and hit just as hard as the guys. So in that respect, I didn't visualize. I just relied on my training. I relied on the fact that I was
counter striking and coming in.
Right. Every day I went through hell. And there was nothing a girl could dish out to me, nothing. So I thought,
kind of thing.
I've had my ass beat so well and so hard and so often, there's nothing you can do to hurt me in that respect. And I didn't think of it that way necessarily, but I just relied on the fact that I had good training. That I left nothing behind.
Those who haven't seen you on YouTube, you've got to go on. It's amazing. You're a whirlwind. I love your spinning back fist, by the way. You're one of the few people that can actually connect with that. And you're kick and stuff, and you're absolute whirlwind, and you can just see it in your persona. It was brilliant, which then portrayed into the movies. Tell us about some of these movies, which I've been watching, and I'm telling you now, I love it. A lot of people don't know you. I thought you were a really good actress, really good, and the fight scenes in those movies were cool. So there you are. I'm just going to slide a few.
Oh, that's
Is that you being the car?
Look at the back of my phone, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, look at you.
That's awesome.
Love that.
That way, if someone steals my phone, Bruce will kick their ass. I don't have to.
There you go.
Kick them in the hand.
I'm gonna have to make it quick because we've got to get ready for our show.
Oh, right, of course.
That's okay, but I'll make it really quick.
Going 2 hours. I could go for hours, you guys. We'll have to do a part 2 and 3 sometime. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly before your show, and I'll make sure I get onto that tonight as well.
How I got started in films after my last world title fight. Albert Pion, who was a director for Knights, approached me and said, "Hey, I've been watching your career, and I'm really interested in you starring in my film. Are you interested in doing that?" And I said, "No, I've never acted before. I am not interested at all. I've never done it, and I'm too shy, and no." So he took that as, okay, but what if I get you an acting coach and I help you with acting, and I just think that you would really be perfect for my film, and I really want you to do it. Will you please just read for the producer? And I said, "What do you mean by read?" He goes, "Well, I'll give you some words that you can say, and you just say them to the producer, and he'll say a few lines and you say a few lines. Would you be willing to try that?" And I said, "I'll try it. Okay, I'll try it." And then what I didn't realize is that Albert Pion was also trying to get the producer to let me read for the script, because the producer said the same thing. "Well, she's never acted, so why would you want her to work on your film?" And he goes, "Because I think that she'd be perfect for it." So anyway, he had to talk the producer into letting me read. He had to talk to me and had to try to talk me into reading with the producer. It was hilarious. So I finally get there and I meet with the producer and we talk a little bit, and he goes, "Okay, you ready to read the lines?" I said, "Okay," because I'm painfully shy.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know it now, but then if they were
younger, I know what you mean.
I'd say 1 or 2 words and that's it. So anyway, long story short, I read with him and he goes, "Wow, that was really good. Okay, you got the film." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, you read great, so you're hired. Let's do the film." And I went, okay. I had no
Oh.
I was doing. So they hired this wonderful acting coach named Kate McGregor Stewart. And I got to give kudos to her because she is not only a great actress herself, she's getting up there in age, but she just threw me into the wolves. And I'm the kind of person that thrives on adrenaline and thrives on pressure. And if there's no pressure, I'll just end up cutting myself, right? Or I'll trip over something.
Right.
But when there's pressure, I shine. And I guess she figured that out and decided to make my life hell. and push me and challenge me. And it was just one of the really a very fun and wonderful experience, but also nerve-wracking because I'm not used to acting.
Oh, you're brilliant. You were fantastic. I've been watching this movie, and I'm going to make sure everyone gets to watch these movies. They're fantastic. So what was your first movie you're in?
The first movie I was in was Knights.
Knights.
With Chris Christopherson and Lance Henriksen.
Right.
Right. And that's spelled Knights.
Yep.
And then after that was and
tell me a bit more about the others and the one, your couple of your stars, main role, right into it. And
yeah, I take that back. The very first film I was ever involved in was Batman Returns.
Batman Returns?
And I was Michelle Pfeiffer's fight double as Catwoman, and what an incredible experience. I mean, just
everybody, when you're watching that again, you know who did the fight scene.
Batman Returns,
did the Karate Kid fight scenes.
Now Michelle Pfeiffer was phenomenal. She was a great she wasn't a martial artist, but she was very flexible and very game she was very willing to do whatever it took.
Yeah. And
I did a small assessment with her to see what her capabilities were. And then I designed everything toward what she was capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And The Stranger, that was cool as well. The Stranger.
Yep, it was fun.
Faster than that. Within 4 hours, apparently getting to the town.
Well, The Stranger was a ripoff of High Plains Drifter, if you remember Clint Eastwood's movie.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was very, it was based after that.
Yep.
Ripoff, but that's okay. It was fun to do it. I'm spitting.
So you guys, that was all. And I know the Richard Norton movie you were with, and Richard as well, another Aussie.
Boy, Richard had a really hard time getting me to Australia to do that film.
Right.
Because the government was saying, well, don't you have a female martial artist kickboxing champion that in Australia they can do your, and he's like, he kept pushing for me, and they kept saying, you should just find somebody in Australia. There's got to be women out there who are champions in kickboxing and masters in martial arts. I'm sure you can find them. Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
As if like they were a dime a dozen.
Well, that's why it took him such a long time to get me out there. And then, in the script, they had only a small part for me, and I was supposed to be killed, and which I did. I got bumped off early in the movie. But
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Okay. Sorry, but
make him watch it.
But it was fun. It was so much fun. Yeah, and I had a great time in Melbourne.
Now, what was the name of that movie? I did write it down here somewhere, but
Under the Gun.
Under the Gun, that was it. I watched the whole thing. It was awesome.
What was that other film that you did with Richard Norton where you guys end up? Was it at the beginning where like you guys beat up people and then you tell Richard something like, "Where are the marshmallows?" Because there was,
I don't remember, but that was the film Under the Gun.
That was at the beginning of the film where you and him fight a bunch of people.
No, that was just the trailer you were watching.
Are you sure?
I don't remember.
Restita as well.
I saw the video. I saw the movie.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
You got to watch it again. You got to watch it again. Those are the days. Simple storyline, great action. Okay, no huge special effects, but you get to understand the storylines compared to some movies these days.
Right. I was a
no ropes, no wires. Really cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So everyone watch Under the Gun.
Under the Gun, The Stranger, Nights, watch Batman Returns, watch Natural Born Killers.
There you go.
Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, Death Becomes Her, Walker, Texas Ranger, episode 39.
There you go.
Deep Cover. And that's the name of it, Deep Cover.
Yep.
And some other shows I've done, but it's just been fun. It's been a lot of fun. Awesome. I love the acting. I'm not good at it, but I love acting.
Oh, you're fine. You were great.
I love the martial arts in the film.
Particularly champions can be like that. You were great.
Thank you. Oh. I don't like the ass kissing that they have to do in films.
Oh, in the film, you mean?
Yeah. Well,
to
get a part,
right.
The whole casting couch concept is alive and well, unfortunately, and I just don't do that. I don't operate that way.
No, I know some of the Hollywood stuff, but you just absolute play. I know you're going to get to your own show, which is awesome, everybody. So everyone should turn into Dynamic Dojo Talk TV. And
yes,
also your website, contact details on that show and everything else.
Yes.
Seattle
Wushu website. Tell us all about how to contact you girls.
Yes. SeattleWushu.org. So the city Seattle and WUSHU.org, SeattleWushu.org, and we have a contact form there, and there's our biographies are there and what we teach on that website and stuff like that. So
Kathy will have a future. You guys should have a future. We should do it together again. YouTube channel, and we can put all those movies up there then.
Yes, we will.
People can YouTube them, check them out, as Kat mentioned. And I've got to say, this could go on for days. You two are just awesome. And if they call Cynthia Rothrock the Queen of Martial Arts, you two are the princesses.
Aww. Thank you.
You're very kind.
Yay.
Thumb each. An Aussie salute for both of you.
Thumbs up for Pastor Joan over there. Yay.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Rusty
Thank
and Kat. Yeah, it was fantastic. And I'll keep an eye on the show. And I wanted to, I'll have to do this again, part 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. It's just been absolutely fascinating. I didn't realize we've gone over 2 hours. My shows are meant to be an hour.
Oops, whoopsie.
That's okay.
It was a pleasure. And I reckon that people watching this will sit there and watch the whole 2 hours, guaranteed. So awesome. Thanks so much, girls. All right. And look forward to meeting you in person again one day when the COVID's out of our way and we can do some martial arts super seminars together and get you for some events. And I really take care. All the best. And I'll keep an eye on your show as well. It's absolutely fantastic.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay.
John Gill,
Bye.
tuning out from Journey into the Martial Arts.
Yay.
Yay. Thanks, John.
Thanks for that. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yay.